Boker Tov, good morning on this wonderful Chanukah morning. What's there not to be thankful for on this morning? Although there are challenges, both life has challenges, and we find ourselves in a challenging time as a Jewish nation. But at the same time, we appreciate and we thank God, we thank Hashem for the miracles, personally, collectively, and there are so many miracles, including the fact that we are now celebrating a holiday, a Chanukah, which has so much to learn from, so much depth, so much richness, so many lessons to enhance our life, to enhance our appreciation, understanding, sort of goal, meaning in life, the purpose of why we are here personally, collectively. Hanukkah just has so much for us to make our lives richer and, even more importantly, to fulfill the purpose of why we are all here. So we're going to learn about Hanukkah. First, we start with tzedakah, charity, to do a mitzvah, to bring forth blessing, bracha in sharing Torah today and words of inspiration, both to inspire me and to inspire you, my dear friends and listeners. You always need what in Aramaic is referred to as siyata deshmaya, help from above, to make sure that your words are appropriate, are proper, are find its mark, the right words are said, and so on. You know, you never know what, as a human being, the errors that we might make. So we need God's help, and hopefully we have it today. And let's also say a bracha, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam she'akol nהיה b'dvaro. Please, I hope you answered Amen, or if you have your own coffee, you made your own blessing. As I said, there's so much we could talk about, but we got to start somewhere. And we'll see where this goes, how much time we have, how many things we could include. So let me start with a little parable. Story is told about this little bird that lands on the back of a huge elephant, smallest animal, or one of the smallest, maybe not the smallest, but a small little bird on the largest animal, an elephant. Elephants are connected to Hanukkah. The Greeks, the equivalent of the modern tank, the Greeks used elephants in war. So this bird is on the elephant, and the elephant starts to run. And in the running, and in his, as he's running down the forest or whatever it is, and he kicks up so much dust and so much dirt. And the little bird says to the elephant, says, "Look how powerful we are. Look how much dust we kicked up." And this parable, or this little story, is told that often in life we can easily be distracted by the little things and think that is what's in charge, or that's what's doing, or where we need to focus, and we forget and don't realize what's the real big event that we need to focus on. Now, the same thing here with Hanukkah. Now, the title of the class is Chanukah Gelt versus Chanukah Gifts. And there are two ways to go down this path. I could tell you, after we have the discussion, sort of what's my personal feel and sense based on both my upbringing and Torah feel of the Torah sources. And we'll have that discussion, and it's not just a small discussion like who cares. There is a message over here, whether we're going to focus and think it's the bird or it's the elephant, that which is important and that which is totally secondary. So in celebrating Hanukkah, there is easy to get caught up on the side things, like, for example, donuts or latkes, which are wonderful customs, as opposed to the Hanukkah menorah, lighting Hanukkah candles, which is part of the mitzvah the main mitzvah of Chanukah. Now, I want to have a discussion, a little bit of a scholarly discussion, and there's levels of how far we could go into this scholarly Torah discussion regarding Chanukah, because Chanukah is a good time to discuss Torah, because Torah, as King Solomon says, Torah is compared to a light, to a candle, to a flame, because it sheds light in our life that is definitely very dark without the light of Torah. So there is a discussion in Jewish in the Chanukah literature, in the Chanukah yeshiva discussion. Any yeshiva boy who's worth any weight am I saying the slogan correctly? I don't know. But any yeshiva boy who spends some time doing a little studying, not just warming the bench, knows about this discussion. There's a famous question by the Bet Yosef. The Bet Yosef is the author of the Code of Jewish Law, the author of Yosef Cairo, great scholar today, author of the Code of Jewish Law, has a question which has become known as probably the most famous Chanukah question. And there's a book called Neir Lameya, which provides 100 answers, collects 100 answers to this question. There's even more than 100 answers, I believe, to this question. And the question that he asks, again, famous question, why do we celebrate 8 days of Chanukah? Now, everybody listening will right away send me a comment. Well, we know the menorah was enough to last for 1 day, it lasted for 8 days, right? The modern version of that is our phone battery only had enough for 1 day and the phone lasted for 8 days. Okay, that's on the lighter side. Now, but the Beis Yosef asks a very simple question. Since they had enough oil for 1 day, so the miracle lasted for 8 days, but they didn't need a miracle for 8 days. They needed a miracle for 7 days because they had enough oil for 1 day. And therefore he asks, it would seem that we should only celebrate 7 days as opposed to 8 days. And this is a very famous question of the Bet Yosef. If you have an answer to the question, you're welcome to send a comment. One of the answers to the question is that on the first day, we are celebrating the victory of the Hashmonaim, the war over the Greeks, whereas the other 7 days we're celebrating the miracle of the menorah. Now that is an answer that is given. But it is not the mainstream. I shouldn't say it's not the mainstream. It's not the normal answer given, because it seems quite clearly that the menorah is lit because of the miracle of the Chanukah, the oil, as opposed to the miracle of the defeat militarily against the Greeks. I bring this up because that in itself is a question. You would think over here the following. You have two things that happen in Chanukah. You have the Jews defeating the Greeks, the mightiest army of its time, suppressing all religious observance and freedom, and beyond, violating the Jewish women, as the Talmud elaborates, forbidding Jewish practice, mainly Shabbat, to observing Shabbat, to Brit Milah, Jewish education. So you would think that should be the primary, sort of the elephant, going back to our analogy, the primary celebration of Chanukah. But that is not the primary celebration. The primary celebration is the oil that we found, which seems to be less significant, and the miracle that occurred with the oil. And here lies the important explanation and ramifications for us today, 2023, in the United States of America, or wherever you might be listening to this class. And relates, we'll get back to our title question, Chanukah Gelt versus Chanukah Gifts. The reason why we celebrate the menorah primarily, And we don't celebrate the victory, although we mention it in the Ala Nisim, in the prayer. But the main celebration is the celebration of the oil, is to highlight and underscore something that is so important and relevant today, also in our fight against the enemies who want to destroy us, Hamas, and so on. We do not cherish war. We do not cherish physical violence. That's not who we are, or physical might. That is what the Greeks were all about. The beauty, Olympics started with the Greeks, the beauty of the physical body, materialism. The entire main war of the Maccabees against the Greeks was the war of the spirit, holiness, godliness, Torah, as opposed to materialism, worship of man, and so on. That was what the war was about. So we're not the war. The fact that we defeated the Greeks, the military battle was a miracle, and we thank God in our prayers. But that was a means to what was the main objective. The main objective was what the menorah represents, our worship of God in the holy temple, pure oil, holy oil, the light and the symbolic spiritual light, to be a light unto the nations, to bring holiness. That was the entire objective of the battle of the Maccabees against the Greeks. So that's why the miracle and the celebration of Chanukah is not the battle mainly, but the spiritual victory and sort of bursting forth that was so clearly demonstrated by the miracle of the oil that God provided for us, saying, this is what life is about, this is what I cherish, and this is what will persevere and burn for all of history. That little fire, that little spark of holiness continues to burn despite all the attempts of the mightiest armies to trying to extinguish it. That's what Chanukah is. Its relevance today is so critical. So here, let's talk about Chanukah Gelt versus Chanukah gifts. Because that battle expresses itself today. Now, I tend by nature not to be such a zealot. So I want to make it clear that I'm having this discussion so to hopefully open your eyes into what is important in the celebration of Chanukah, and also to be aware that if we insert into Chanukah celebration influences of the secular culture around us, that is the opposite of what Chanukah was about. That is what the Greeks wanted. The Greeks wanted for us to disconnect from our Torah connection and to just accept the dominant culture, the enlightened culture of the time, get away from the past dark ages or outdated Torah view, and accept the moving forward, the advanced view of its day. And in each time, there's always this advanced view. In today's day and age, especially in Western culture, there's so much of what is considered enlightenment, advanced, rejection of outdated views, including a traditional Torah view. But Chanukah is exactly that, combating that. So when you insert within Chanukah those influences, you're not only messing up, it defeats the entire purpose. You're distorting what Chanukah is meant to teach us, each one of us, in our own way of struggling with these issues. So let's talk about Chanukah Gelt. What is the origins of Chanukah Gelt? Now, Chanukah Gelt in today's day and age has two meanings. Chanukah Gelt can mean, the literal translation of Gelt means money, right? Gelt is money. In today's day and age, when you say Chanukah Gelt, they don't even remember that it means money. To them, it means chocolate. Chocolate Gelt. Okay, fine. I mean, I have over here in front of me Wikipedia opened to see when did the tradition of chocolate coins start. So here, I'm just going to read very quickly, just to educate ourselves a little bit. American chocolatiers of the 20th century picked up on the gift coin concept by creating chocolate Gelt. In the 1920s, Lofts, an American candy company, produced the first chocolate Gelt, wrapped in gold or silver foil in mesh pouches resembling money bags. Loft was followed by another US-based company called Barton's. Okay? So that is the origin of chocolate Chanukah Gelt. But what's the origin? What's the reason for Gelt, Chanukah? Because in the Talmud, remember, Chanukah is a rabbinical holiday. It's not in the Torah because it's post-Torah. So the Talmud in Tractate Shabbos asks, "My Chanukah, why do we celebrate Chanukah?" And in the Talmud, there is no mention of Chanukah Gelt. That is a tradition that started hundreds of years later. It is mentioned already in the commentaries on the Shulchan Aruch. One of the most known reasons for Chanukah Gelt is the fact that is related because Chanukah is from the word chinuch, to educate. It's related to that word. And since the Greeks wanted to stamp out our religion, stamp out our connection to Torah and to Judaism, what is the most effective way to do so is, of course, by forbidding Jewish education to our kindalach, to our children. If you want to have Jewish children, if you want to have Jewish grandchildren, the most important thing that you could do is educate them in a real way and in a real connection to their roots. If you want to eliminate, if you want to disconnect Jews from their roots, from their beautiful chain of tradition, from the most meaningful way of living life, from the most kind way of living life, you don't educate the kinderlach, you don't educate the children. Chanukah, therefore, became a time when we focus on the children. And Chanukah Gelt traditionally was given to children for excelling in their Torah studies. So it was a tradition to either test or to encourage the children to study Torah, and you rewarded them with Chanukah Gelt. That's one of the main reasons for Chanukah Gelt. There are other reasons given, but this is one of the main reasons. Another reason, which is an interesting reason, is that we have a shamash. Why do we have a shamash for the Chanukah menorah? We don't have a shamash on Shabbat when we light Shabbos candles, because as we say in the Hanerot Halalu, Anu Madlikim, in the Hanerot Halalu, we say that we are not allowed to derive any benefit from the Chanukah candles. So we go ahead and we have a shamash to use as the light that we would be benefiting from, as to make sure that we're not benefiting and deriving any pleasure or any usage from the Chanukah candles itself. And the Talmud uses the expression, what's an example that you can't use the Chanukah candles for? You don't count money in front of the Chanukah candles. On a deeper level, this has also come to mean to highlight that candles, actual candles, represents Torah, represents mitzvahs. As King Solomon says, Kineir mitzvah v'Torah or, a mitzvah is compared to a candle and Torah to the flame, to the light. By not counting money in front of the light, it is telling us, similar to what King David says, that the Torah, Hashem, God Almighty, the Torah that you've given me is far better than thousands and thousands of coins of gold and silver. So that's the Chanukah Gelt idea. To the best of my knowledge, there is no origin. I shouldn't say there's no origin, because I might have seen it in one place, but there is almost universal that there's no place that discusses Chanukah gifts. it discusses Chanukah Gelt. Now, so I've seen mostly, just looking through some of the sources and my own upbringing, and my own feeling, I've seen a strong opposition to Chanukah gifts. Why? Because Chanukah gifts is influenced by non-Jewish celebrations, and we are careful, very careful, and that has its origins in the Torah, that we do not model our holidays, our observances from sort of the outside. We have a Torah, we have a rich history, and because once you start modeling on the outside, you don't know where it's going to go. We have very clear guidelines of how we celebrate our holidays. And for the most part, it seems quite clearly that the transition from Chanukah Gelt to Chanukah Gift was most likely an influence of the time of the year, the season that is celebrated in the world around us, which we as Jews do not celebrate, although we wish our neighbors and the other nations, we wish them only the best, and they should celebrate and be proud of what they're celebrating, but it's not our celebration. And it is not meant to influence, and it's forbidden to bring that in to our Torah way of celebrating. Now, there are exceptions. There's some who do put in Chanukah Gelt and gifts as one. But for the most part, I would say it is not the case. And therefore, I want to suggest like this. I know I also, of course, grew up around the Rebbe, Rabbi Menachem Mendel Schneerson. He always underscored Gelt. I've never seen him or heard from the Rebbe discussing Chanukah gifts. And just in my observation from social media and being a sort of rabbi living in today's times, it does seem to me that the Chanukah gifts, and you could send me your comments and you could give me your opinion, but it does seem to me that the Chanukah gift idea is an influence of the world around us as opposed of Jewish observance and Jewish sources. And therefore, I suggest that if you have a child that for whatever reason, the only way to excite them in their learning is only through a gift, and they're learning Torah, and they're learning holiness, and they're learning Judaism is through a gift, then okay, I would say you have maybe a little opening where you could do so. But if you could get away from that, and you could fulfill this beautiful, encouraged custom by Chanukah Gelt, as to encourage them in their learning, and also to bring Chanukah joy. That's another reason given for Chanukah Gelt, is to just increase the joy of the holiday based on what Maimonides says, that we give out treats to our children, which, by the way, that's one of the opinions that says that gifts are okay, because it seems to have this origin in the Rambam, which he talks about giving out treats to the children. So I would say, again, emphasis is not on the I, because that's egotistical. There's a Hayom Yom, a famous Hasidic saying that the Rebbes of Chabad did not like the word ich in Yiddish, I. I is a little too egotistical. So putting that aside, my suggestion over here is that if you can shy away from the gifts and focus on Chanukah Gelt, actual money, which is much more in line with Jewish tradition, with the purity, talking about pure oil of Jewish tradition, that is where we should go. That's the direction you should go. So on that note, I want to wish you a happy Hanukkah. There's so much, maybe in the other nights of Hanukkah, I'll share some more tidbits. There's much more beautiful discussion and lessons and inspiration that we can learn from this beautiful holiday. First and foremost, to be proud of who we are, to shine to both ourselves and to the world. The Hanukkah light is the mitzvah, to place it, yes, in our homes, so that we fill our homes with the light of Hanukkah, but we're supposed to do so on the door or the window facing the outside, representing that it is our responsibility and our merit to bring light, the light of goodness, the light of holiness to the world around us. May we merit to be committed to that and to do so. May we merit to the ultimate light, which is the light of the menorah that will be lit again with the fulfillment of the prophets, with the coming of Mashiach in the third temple. May we merit to do so. And may we merit to do so as we see the soldiers as they're fighting for our people, as we see they are with great pride lighting menorah all over where they are stationed. So that merit, may that entire flame come together to ignite the world with a spirit of holiness, with a spirit of warmth, with a spirit of passion, of goodness, passion of holiness. That's what it's all about. And we merit to do so. I hope to see you today. Today is the annual Chanukah festival, starting at 3 o'clock. You could look at the flyer for all the wonderful things that will be taking place. I hope to see you there today. Please be there. I also want to mention, if I know you appreciate what Chabad does and all the good work that Chabad does, and the help that we provide and the education that we provide, we do have an end-of-year campaign. Please go onto our website, participate in the end-of-year campaign. It would be greatly appreciated. And a mitzvah, and it is a mitzvah, an extra mitzvah to give some extra charity on Hanukkah. Please participate. Thank you very much. Have a fantastic